The latest round of reporting around Prince Harry and Meghan Markle suggests that the Sussex story has moved into a much more fragile phase. For years, the public conversation focused on their break with the royal family, their media deals, their accusations, their new life in California, and Harry's legal battles. But now the focus is shifting inward toward the state of the marriage itself, the pressure of a fading American dream, and the possibility that Harry may be looking back toward Britain, not only because of family, but because the life he built with Meghan has not delivered what they promised themselves it would. The most explosive claim comes from Lady Colin Campbell, who is alleged, while repeatedly adding legal caveats, that Harry has formed a close emotional connection with a woman in or around the Montecito area. Lady C was careful to say she was not alleging an affair. She framed it as an interest, a companion, a woman of a similar age, and someone with whom Harry is said by her sources to share affection.
Well, Harry has met someone who is his age, with whom he is in love, and who is in love with him. And Meghan found out about it, according to my sources of information.
According to that claim, Meghan allegedly discovered messages on Harry's phone and was deeply unhappy about it. Again, this is not confirmed fact. It is a claim from a commentator with sources, and it must be treated carefully. But the significance is not only whether every detail is true. The significance is that public discussion of Harry and Meghan's marriage has entered a new stage. For a long time, much of the mainstream press avoided going directly into the question of whether the Sussex marriage was under serious strain. There were whispers, commentary, body language analysis, speculation about separate appearances, and questions about why Meghan was absent during Harry's more difficult public moments. But now, the language is becoming bolder. Alison Boshoff of the Daily Mail used a phrase that immediately stood out: the veil is lifted.
After she discovered texts on Harry's phone. How many tears left I? How many?
In context, that phrase was used to suggest that Harry may be seeing Meghan, their choices, and the consequences of Megxit differently from how he saw them when he was first swept up in the relationship. That phrase matters because it captures the entire Sussex arc. At the beginning, Harry appeared madly in love. He seemed prepared to choose Meghan over almost anything. Family, country, role, tradition, and even the royal system that had shaped his entire life. The public was told that this was a great love story, a modern fairy tale, a prince freeing himself from a cold institution for the woman he adored. But years later, after Oprah, Netflix, Spare, court battles, collapsing media momentum, strained family ties, and declining popularity on both sides of the Atlantic, that fairy tale looks very different. The claim now is not that Harry never loved Meghan. It is that love may have blinded him to consequences. One source quoted in the reporting suggested that Harry never truly wanted to be estranged from his family, but that when he was intensely in love with Meghan, he was able to choose her completely.
Have an interest elsewhere, and you notice I say if, and I do so for legal reasons. And you also notice for legal reasons, I haven't said that he's having an affair with this woman, nor have I said that he's having a post-marital or anything affair with.
Now, according to that interpretation, the emotional fog may be clearing. The life in California may not look as magical as it once did. The Hollywood dream may have turned into a much harder, colder reality. And Harry may be starting to understand how much was lost. That does not mean Harry is only a victim of Meghan. It is too easy to put every decision at her feet. Harry is an adult. Spare was published under his name. The interviews came from him as well as from Meghan, the Netflix series used his voice and his story. The attacks on William, Catherine, Camilla, and the wider royal institution were not forced out of him in a vacuum. He chose to participate. He chose to escalate. He chose to monetize private family pain. Even if Meghan influenced the direction of the couple's life, Harry still bears responsibility for the damage. But there is a difference between responsibility and origin. Many critics believe Meghan was the driving force behind the move to California and the pivot toward Hollywood. Harry, they argue, would likely have remained in the royal family had he married someone with a different temperament and different ambitions. He may have grumbled, felt overshadowed, and struggled with the press, but he had a role, a country, a military identity, and causes that made sense within the royal framework. Meghan represented a different possibility. Celebrity freedom, American media, wealth, control, and a life where she could be central rather than placed below William and Catherine in a royal hierarchy. For a while, that dream looked possible. There was the Oprah interview, the Netflix deal, the Spotify deal, a best-selling memoir, and enormous global attention. But attention is not the same as lasting success. Spotify ended. Netflix has not produced the ongoing cultural dominance the Sussexes needed.
If you value the whole truth and nothing but the truth on these royal stories, make sure you subscribe to Outspoken right now. It allows me to work outside of the MSM and the Royal Rota.
According to what I have been told, Meghan is livid, but I'm going to quote, but not enough to give up on her brand, which includes Harry's connection.
Meghan's lifestyle ambitions have struggled to become more than curiosity. Harry's legal defeats have damaged his serious image. Their brand remains famous, but fame without respect is unstable. The question now is whether the Sussexes are discovering that the American dream is still alive, but not for people who do not produce enough work to sustain it. That was one of the blunt points made in the discussion. America admires work, productivity, momentum, reinvention, and success. Harry and Meghan arrived with royal status, but royal status alone was never going to be enough forever. The public watched the grievances, the accusations, the documentaries, the carefully staged stories, and then waited for the great creative empire to appear. It has not appeared. Meghan did not become a dominant Hollywood producer. Harry did not become a statesman-like global reformer. Their projects have often felt either derivative, self-focused, or too dependent on the royal family they claimed to have outgrown. This is also why the Daily Mail's willingness to go further matters. After Associated Newspaper's major courtroom victory over Harry, the Mail appears to have more confidence in reporting sharply on the Sussexes. For years, some mainstream outlets were cautious about going too directly into the state of the marriage, partly because the claims were difficult to prove, and partly because Harry and Meghan had shown a willingness to fight the press aggressively. But when a newspaper group has just defended itself successfully against Harry in court, the balance changes. It may feel less intimidated. It may feel that the public mood has shifted. And it may feel that the Sussex story has reached a point where the old protective silence around the marriage no longer holds. That does not mean every claim should be accepted uncritically. It means the boundaries of acceptable discussion are moving. The phrase "the veil is lifting" would once have been considered too direct for many mainstream royal reports. Now it appears in a major newspaper connected to a broader account of reverse Megxit, Highgrove, Portugal, Invictus, and Harry's changing feelings. That is a sign that the story is no longer only being told by online commentators, insiders, or anti-Sussex accounts. It is entering the conventional royal press with careful language, but with unmistakable implications. That is why the idea of reverse Megxit keeps returning. The reporting suggests that Harry and Meghan are considering some form of return to the United Kingdom, not necessarily a full permanent relocation, but a staged reconnection. Portugal is being discussed as a possible base or stepping stone, a place on the right side of the Atlantic that allows them to move more easily between California, Europe, and Britain. If the Montecito dream is cooling, Portugal offers a softer transition. They can say they are simply expanding their global life, while critics will see it as the beginning of a retreat. According to Boshoff's reporting, a source close to Harry said there is a feeling in his camp that he has started to feel unwelcome in America, and that the American dream may not have been all it was cracked up to be.
Reporting comes at a time that the Daily Mail is finally prepared to go there, suggesting that while he was madly in love, the veil is now lifting. So let me take you inside this reporting from what she describes as the plan to reverse Megxit from the Daily Mail's Alison Boshoff, who reports the conditions of the reconciliation, this is with the king, were that...
Another part of the briefing suggested that Meghan too is supportive of reconnecting with Harry's English side. That is a major shift. For years, Britain was presented by the Sussex narrative as a place of pain, racism, media cruelty, danger, and institutional coldness. Now, suddenly, reconnecting with Harry's English identity is useful again. That shift will not be easy to sell to the British public. Harry and Meghan cannot treat the United Kingdom as a backup plan after years of attacking its institutions and people. They cannot imply that Britain was unbearable when America was working, then rediscover affection for it when Hollywood cools. Many Britons will ask why they should welcome back a couple who left, condemned, profited from royal drama, and now appear to want access again because the alternative has not worked. The Highgrove meeting is at the center of this. According to the reporting, there were strict conditions around the reunion with King Charles. No cameras, no briefings, and no social media performance.
There was to be no cameras in the room, no briefings, and no Instagram posts about jam or anything else. To these strictures, an apparently humbled Harry agreed in a heartbeat, and he has been as good as his word. Now, again, I totally disagree with that. Like, honestly, they leaked immediately to People magazine last week about how unhappy Meghan was and how sad she was about how it had all played out.
The idea was that Harry agreed to keep the meeting private and respectful, but critics immediately point out that stories did appear afterward. People magazine carried sympathetic reporting about Meghan's sadness and frustration. The Sunday Mirror carried material about Harry's emotional reunion and continuing security concerns. So the question becomes obvious. If the condition was no briefing, why does the public now know so much about the emotional framing of the meeting? This is why trust remains the central problem. Harry and Meghan say they want reconciliation, but reconciliation requires silence. It requires not turning family contact into public leverage. It requires accepting that a meeting with the king is not a branding opportunity, not a negotiation tool, and not a way to soften public opinion ahead of a larger strategy. If every private step is followed by a sympathetic story, the palace has no reason to believe future access will stay private. Charles may see it differently because he is a father and grandfather, he is living with cancer, even if treatment appears to be going well, and he may not want to be estranged from Harry or from Archie and Lilibet. That human instinct is understandable, but the danger is that Harry and Meghan may know exactly how to use that instinct. The children are the most powerful emotional card in the deck. If Charles wants to see them, and if Harry and Meghan connect that access to security, housing, or wider acceptance, the king is placed in an impossible position. The reporting around the next steps makes that possibility even clearer. Harry is expected to return to the UK in September for another charity event. There is also talk that he may accept an offer to stay at Buckingham Palace in future if arrangements are made properly. Next summer, or rather around the next major British Invictus moment, the plan being discussed is that Harry could be in Birmingham for the full event, with Meghan possibly accompanying him for the whole period, and the children potentially coming as well. If that happens, it would not be a small family visit. It would be a major Sussex reintroduction on British soil. The location question is important because royal property changes the meaning of everything. A hotel stay is private. A borrowed house is private. A palace or highgrove is symbolic. If Harry stays at Buckingham Palace, the public will see that as far more than accommodation. If Meghan and the children stay at Highgrove during Invictus, the story becomes royal restoration by atmosphere. No official role needs to be announced. The images and the briefings will do the work. The Sussexes would be able to say they are simply staying with family, while the public understands that family, in this case, is also the monarchy. Invictus is the perfect setting for such a move. It is Harry's strongest cause. It connects him to veterans, service, resilience, and something more admirable than royal grievance. If Meghan and the children appear at Invictus in Britain, the optics would be powerful.
And then we've seen the leaking from Harry to the Sunday Mirror over the weekend about how emotional the reunion was. So please, can we not say that these two know how to keep their mouths shut, because they don't. But a friend of his comments to Bosch off, Harry was never going to let the kids down. They were so invested in the trip. They FaceTime with Charles all the time, so they already have a relationship, but they were so excited to finally come home. It was their first proper chance to meet.
The Sussexes could say the children are simply seeing what their father does and experiencing a cause close to his heart. Critics would say the children are being introduced as emotional symbols to soften the public and pressure the palace. That is where the phrase "using the children" enters the conversation, and it must be handled carefully. Archie and Lilibet are innocent children and should not be attacked. They have no responsibility for adult strategy, but public decisions made around them can still be questioned. If they are kept completely private when privacy supports the Sussex brand, then suddenly made visible when visibility helps royal rehabilitation, the public will notice. If their presence is used to argue for security, family reconciliation, or access to royal properties, critics will see that as emotional leverage. The security issue is crucial. Harry continues to argue that he and his family face a special risk because of his birth and his membership of the royal family. His side says the threats did not disappear simply because he stepped back from official duty. That argument has emotional force. Harry is the king's son, a public figure, and a former soldier. But the opposing view is that Harry left the job and therefore left many of the state-supported benefits that came with the job. He cannot live as a private commercial figure and then demand the public protection of a working royal whenever it suits him. Some critics believe that if Harry were to regain the right kind of official security arrangement, it could become difficult to remove and could affect how he is protected internationally. Whether every detail of that argument is legally precise or not, the concern is obvious. Security is not just protection, it is status. It signals that Harry remains institutionally important. It makes it easier for Meghan and the children to travel with him. It potentially reduces the couple's private security costs, and it creates the practical conditions for more time in Britain. That is why critics suspect the children may become part of the security argument. The implied message is simple.
It seems that a return to the UK is being contemplated in some form, and that the couple's holiday home in Portugal will be used as a staging post back to Britain. I'm told there are two key reasons for this. A friend of Prince Harry says there is definitely a feeling in his camp that he has started to feel a bit unwelcome in America. That has been an increasing and significant shift in sentiment, a feeling that the American dream might not be all that it was cracked.
If you want the king to see his grandchildren, if you want Archie and Lilibet to experience Britain, if you want a family reunion, then security must be improved. That places emotional pressure on Charles and political pressure on the government. It also turns private family access into a public negotiation. For many observers, that is exactly what makes the strategy feel so uncomfortable. The Portugal house adds another layer. According to the reporting, the Sussexes have had or are having a home prepared in Portugal, with some describing it as a way for the children to be closer to their royal side. It is said to be private, positioned well for travel, and close enough to London to serve as a stepping stone. The source suggested Harry is proudly British and English and does not want to become a kind of rootless European social figure, but that Portugal could work as a temporary bridge. If true, that is a very telling arrangement. It gives the Sussexes access without admitting defeat. They do not have to say they are returning to Britain because America failed. They can say they are giving the children European roots, balancing family life and making travel easier, but strategically it places them within striking distance of the UK. It allows more regular contact with Charles, more appearances around British events, and a gradual rebuilding of royal relevance. The security contrast is also revealing. Critics point out that Meghan and the children can apparently travel privately in Portugal, and if reports are accurate, they may have travelled quietly to the UK and Highgrove as well. If those trips can happen without public drama, it weakens the argument that Britain is uniquely impossible without extraordinary state protection. The absence of photographs, paparazzi chaos, or visible security incidents can be read as proof that private visits are possible when the couple wants them to be private.
It's never easy, it's never simple, it's always complicated. And when it comes to the United States especially, we really appreciate hard work in America, and that's the last thing Prince Harry and Meghan Markle do is hard work. They barely work at all, and then they want all the praise, all the accolades, all the attention, all the glory for doing the minimal bare work that they do. And so the American dream is very, very much alive, but Harry and Meghan couldn't live it because
there are also reports that security was improved for the recent visit, though not to the full level Harry wanted. A source described it as a better arrangement and a step forward. That is exactly why critics worry. Baby steps can become precedent. A small improvement can become the basis for asking for more. A private visit can become a more public visit. A meeting at Highgrove can become a stay at a palace. A September charity event can become a wider family return. Each step sounds reasonable on its own. Together they begin to look like the half-in, half-out model the late Queen rejected. That is the real constitutional and family danger. The late Queen made clear that Harry and Meghan could not have a hybrid royal commercial role. But if Charles, out of compassion, allows them to rebuild proximity without official title changes, the effect may be similar. They may not be working royals on paper, but they could become royal adjacent enough to benefit commercially and emotionally. That is why William will be watching very closely. The divide between Harry and William remains unresolved. According to some Sussex-friendly sources, the brothers do communicate, and Harry would like a future where William attends family meetings or signals some kind of acceptance, but that appears extremely unlikely. William has been the target of some of Harry's most damaging public claims. Catherine was pulled into the narrative repeatedly. Their children have grown up under a cloud of Sussex drama. It is difficult to imagine William walking into a Highgrove reunion with Meghan present, simply because Harry's camp now says reconciliation would send a wonderful signal. The truth is that Harry's future is not only in Charles's hands, it is in William's. Charles may open doors while he is king, but William will inherit the long-term consequences. If Harry and Meghan are partially restored now, William may one day have to decide whether to tolerate, contain, or reverse that arrangement. Everyone around the monarchy understands this. That is why a source saying Harry's future is in his brother's hands may be one of the most honest lines in the whole story. William's likely position is simple. Trust has been broken. He may accept that Charles wants private contact with Harry and the grandchildren. He may even tolerate limited family meetings if they remain genuinely private, but he is unlikely to support a Sussex return to royal property, royal symbolism, and semi-official status. He will not want Meghan and Harry near the operational heart of the monarchy. He will not want Archie and Lilibet used as a parallel youth story beside George, Charlotte, and Louis. And he will not want Catherine forced back into a relationship that has caused enormous stress. This is especially sensitive because Catherine has become one of the monarchy's most trusted public figures after an extraordinarily difficult period in her own life. Any renewed Sussex drama would not remain safely around Harry and Charles. It would inevitably pull in Catherine because the old wounds involve her too. Spare placed her in the story. Oprah placed the family in the story. Netflix placed the institution in the story. If Meghan returns to royal-adjacent spaces, the press will immediately ask whether Catherine will meet her, whether the women can reconcile, and whether the Wales children will see the Sussex children. That is exactly the kind of circus William will want to avoid. For George, Charlotte, and Louis, the long-term issue is even bigger. They are being raised inside a system of duty. Archie and Lilibet are being raised outside that system, but still carry prince and princess titles. If the Sussex children are later brought into British public life on carefully chosen occasions, the media will create instant comparisons. One branch will be the disciplined heirs. The other will be the glamorous American cousins. That may sound distant now, but royal stories are generational. Decisions made by Charles today can shape headlines William has to manage for decades. This is why some commentators argue that the cleanest solution would be for Harry to lose remaining constitutional markers, his place as a Councillor of State, perhaps eventually his titles, or other formal signs of royal relevance. That is a drastic position, and it is unlikely under Charles, but the argument shows how frustrated critics have become. They believe Harry keeps using his royal connection to demand privileges while acting against the institution. If the connection is the basis for the security argument, they say, then reduce the connection. The palace is unlikely to go that far now because Charles is not temperamentally inclined to punish Harry publicly, but avoiding hard decisions can create bigger problems later. If Harry remains in the line of succession, retains titles, maintains royal branding, rebuilds British access, and secures better protection, then he may gain many of the benefits of royal life without accepting the duties. That is precisely the scenario the late Queen tried to prevent. The marriage question sits over all of this. If Harry and Meghan are under strain, their strategy may become even more complicated. Meghan may not want to give up the brand because the brand depends heavily on Harry's royal connection to the king.
Precisely what the late Queen barred the couple from doing. What we do know is that Harry will be back in September for another charity event. There is an expectation that there will be another meeting with the king and that he will accept an offer to stay at Buckingham Palace in good time this time. Next summer, he will be in Birmingham for all 10 days of the Invictus Games, and the plan is that Meghan will come with him for the whole thing. If she's in the UK, then they will want to bring the...
Harry may not want to leave because he loves his children and because a separation would create enormous practical and emotional complications. Even if the relationship is difficult, the Sussex operation may hold together because both sides still need what the other provides. Meghan needs Harry's title and bloodline. Harry needs Meghan as the partner around whom he built the entire post-royal life. That is why Lady Colin Campbell's claim, whether true or not, created such a reaction. It touched the central vulnerability of the Sussex story. If Harry's emotional loyalty to Meghan is weakening, then the foundation of Megxit weakens with it. The entire break was built around the idea that Harry chose love and freedom over duty and family. If he now doubts that choice, or if Meghan suspects his heart is elsewhere, the narrative becomes unstable. The fairy tale begins to look like a trap. But even if there is no other woman, the pressure on the marriage would still be obvious.
Children too, says the friend. If it is possible, I'm told he would like the children to see what he does and experience some of the atmosphere of the games, which are very close to his heart. Where might they stay? Highgrove would make perfect sense geographically. Now, I'll just again pause there, Brittany, because what this is a very sort of PR spun way of saying is that Harry and Meghan are planning to unmask the children next year at the Invictus Games. They intended to do it this year. It didn't work out. They're going to take another year, Brittany, to try and use the children as a
Money pressure, public failure, legal humiliation, brand fatigue, family estrangement, and competing visions of the future would strain any couple. Harry may miss Britain. Meghan may need royal status but dislike Britain. Harry may want his children near Charles. Meghan may want the brand value without the public hostility. Harry may regret burning bridges. Meghan may fear losing the very connection that makes her globally relevant. Those tensions do not require scandal to be serious. The American dream has become a central pressure point. Meghan may have believed she could return to Hollywood not as a supporting cable actress, but as a duchess with global power. Harry may have believed that royal fame could be converted into a new life of influence and money. They both discovered that celebrity markets are brutal. Initial curiosity does not guarantee long-term demand. Producers want results. Audiences want quality. Brands want conversion.
Blackmail in their battle with the king, using the British government in order to do so. I mean, seriously, it's nuts. And do we actually believe that even if they do get their way, that they will unveil the children? Or is it just a way of trying to force the British government into giving them security? And remember, I have reported, and this still hasn't been picked up anywhere else, and it infuriates me, but I have reported, Brittany, that the reason they want the security cover from Ravik is once they get it, it's very difficult to lose it, and it would mean that they were covered.
And after the royal grievances are exhausted, a couple has to prove they can create something people want to watch, buy, or follow. That is why money and marriage cannot be separated in this story. Financial pressure changes household dynamics. It changes power dynamics. It changes the way a couple talks about the future. If Meghan believed the move would produce lasting Hollywood success, and Harry now feels that promise was oversold, resentment can grow. If Harry wants more Britain, and Meghan wants more brand control, tension can grow. If Meghan needs the royal connection but dislikes the family system that provides it, tension can grow. If Harry misses the family he helped damage, tension can grow. None of this requires one dramatic event. It can build quietly over years. The most painful possibility for Harry is that he may now recognize there is no easy way back. California did not become the paradise he imagined, but Britain is not waiting with open arms.
All over the world for security, which means immediately Harry and Meghan don't have to pay their $3 million security bill. But I think what they're doing here very clearly, Brittany, is using the children as bait to the king, as bait to the British government, as bait to the British public. Like, you give us the security, you'll see the children. It's gross. And I don't even
The family he left has changed. William is harder. Catherine is more protected. Charles is more vulnerable. The public is less patient. The press is more confident. The old Harry, the popular Harry, the fun royal brother, cannot simply return because too much has been said and written. That is what makes the current moment feel so trapped. The way forward is uncertain, and the way back is blocked by Harry's own choices. That is where the Netflix numbers and wider entertainment signals become damaging. If viewers are not watching the projects that are not directly about the royal family, then the conclusion is obvious. The royal connection is the product. That is why a return to Britain is so tempting. Fresh royal access creates fresh content value. A meeting with Charles is more valuable than another cooking clip. Archie and Lilibet near a British royal event are more valuable than another lifestyle tease. A reconciliation narrative is more valuable than another complaint about the past. But that is also why the monarchy must be cautious. Every piece of access can become content. A private tea can become a People magazine story. A palace stay can become proof of restoration. A child's visit can become emotional leverage. A moment at Invictus can become a brand reset. Charles may intend kindness, but Harry and Meghan's commercial world turns symbolism into currency. The palace cannot pretend that does not matter. There is also a contradiction in the claim that the era of fighting is over. Some sources brief that Harry is putting down his fists, that there will be no more court cases, and that he wants peace. Yet other briefings suggest he will continue lobbying or pressuring the Home Office over security. He may not bring another formal court case, but the battle clearly is not over if he continues using media, sources, and political pressure to seek a different outcome. The method may change. The fight continues. That pattern is classic Harry. He says he wants peace, then opens another front. He says he wants privacy, then tells the world his pain. He says he wants reconciliation, then allows stories to appear. He says he wants safety, then turns security into a public campaign. He says he wants to move forward, but everything loops back to the same grievances. The press, the palace, security, status, William, and the life he left behind. For Meghan, silence may be strategic right now. If reports are circulating that the veil is lifting and that Harry is reassessing the marriage, she may prefer not to appear publicly until the narrative can be controlled. Meghan is often highly conscious of image. A public appearance during this kind of speculation could become too risky. But absence also fuels the story. When Meghan disappears during difficult moments, critics read it as distancing. When she reappears during glamorous moments, they read it as opportunism. That is the price of a brand built on control. The next few months may be decisive. Harry's September visit will be watched closely. Where does he stay? Does he meet Charles again? Does any palace source brief about warmth? Does Meghan appear? Are the children mentioned? Does the security language intensify? Then attention will move toward the next major Invictus moment in Britain. If Meghan and the children are framed as likely to attend, the public will understand that a larger Sussex return strategy is underway. The British public's reaction may be harder than the Sussexes expect. There may be curiosity, but curiosity is not welcome. There may be sympathy for Charles wanting to see his grandchildren, but sympathy is not support for restoring Harry and Meghan's status. Many people feel that the couple made their choice. They left, attacked, monetized, and now appear to want the door reopened. That will not be forgiven easily, especially if taxpayers are asked to support security or if royal properties become part of the arrangement. In the end, this is a story about consequences. Harry and Meghan wanted freedom, but freedom came with bills, competition, and the loss of automatic royal protection. They wanted Hollywood, but Hollywood demanded output. They wanted privacy, but built a brand on public confession. They wanted to keep titles, but reject hierarchy. They wanted to leave Britain, but now appear to need Britain again. Every contradiction is now catching up with them. If Lady Colin Campbell's claims about Harry's private emotional life are even partly accurate, they add a personal crisis to an already unstable public situation. If the claims are wrong, the broader pattern still remains. The Sussex marriage is under pressure because the project it was built around is under pressure. America is colder. Britain is suspicious. Charles is vulnerable. William is resistant. The children are becoming central to the next phase. Security remains unresolved. Money may be tightening. And the brand needs royal oxygen. That is why the phrase, "the veil is lifting," has landed so strongly. It is not just about Harry seeing Meghan differently. It is about the public seeing the whole Sussex project differently. What once looked like liberation may now look like miscalculation. What once looked like love conquering monarchy may now look like a couple trapped by the choices they made. What once looked like a new global brand may now look like two people trying to find a way back to the very institution they said they had outgrown. The monarchy now has a choice. It can offer private compassion with hard public boundaries, or it can allow the Sussexes to blur the line again. Charles may want to be a forgiving father. William will have to be a protective future king. Meghan may want to preserve the brand. Harry may want to come home without admitting defeat. But the public will not ignore the pattern. If the children, the security issue, Portugal, Highgrove, Invictus, and palace stays all begin to connect, the direction will be obvious. Harry and Meghan may call it family healing. Critics will call it reverse Megxit. And somewhere between those two descriptions lies the truth. The Sussexes appear to be looking for a way back to royal relevance because life outside the system has not been strong enough on its own.